of AI for another week. So this is like our podcast, Jack, except with
Yes.
this video.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
and here's something I brought back from Portugal.
Hmm.
This lovely mug from this lovely ceramics town with a rabbit because I was born in the year of the rabbit. So there.
Okay, very good. And are
I
you
think
drinking coffee the way Portuguese drink it? So it has to be like quadruple espresso?
very good point. Our coffee was so limited because they
Hmm.
just seem to only drink little bits of it, which is
Hmm.
hard for us. So we had a debacle in the airport of Amsterdam because there's a Starbucks there.
Hmm.
And immediately when you go anywhere and say, "Can I have a cup of brewed coffee?"
Hmm.
they literally lose their minds because they've never heard of such. Which is, it's okay if you say Americano, which is not brewed coffee, right? It's
Hmm.
espresso with water in it. And I don't know why they think that that's a good thing because I'm like, nah, it's not quite the same. And, coffee is sort of, I don't have to explain it to them. But then they apparently had this ability to make a cup of coffee. Okay.
Hmm.
And I said, great. Yeah, you've got this whole setup if you've been to a Starbucks where they're like special reserve roast, all that bullshit, right? I'm like,
Hmm.
great. Can you make me a cup of coffee? This would be great. It's like back in the swing of things. And they're like, well, the person that's been authorized and has the authority and training to make this coffee is on break.
Hmm.
So immediately in my mind, you just pour some fucking water over the coffee grounds. Like, why is this so complicated to you guys, right? Like, it literally is the easiest way to make
Hmm.
coffee, but completely amazed. So I was like, okay, I will wait till they get off break. And let's just skip ahead that barely got this cup of coffee out of them after 30 minutes of
Hmm.
wrestling with it to get a cup of brewed coffee. So, yes, I have a cup of good old fashioned American
Hmm.
pour water over it coffee, and I am
Hmm.
hyped to the gills with caffeine, which I did realize you don't get as much of when you only drink this much, Jack. So thank you for asking.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, I I hope you are not suggesting that this discussion is supposed to be about AI and robotics, that some sort of intelligent ways to allow for the flexibility of choosing your own style of coffee by mixing the proportions of water and coffee. Yeah, but that could be a separate discussion.
I think it is always interesting from a UX point of view to know that your thoughts and conventions are not always shared by others, right?
Mm.
So
Mhm.
the things that you consider normal and proper and all that can be completely puzzling to others. And I think, if I had any hope for the world of AI, it's to bridge the gap because unlike brittle systems that have to be told how other people act and what their
Mm.
convention, AI can sort of guess at, right? And it can approximate.
Yeah.
And I think that there's something, well, we both think this is amazing because this isn't really what computers are good at, right? That's what I think is so cool about this.
Mm.
Computers are the most rigid, horribly brittle things ever, right?
Mm.
They don't operate out of their abilities ever. And
Mm.
I was just writing our last discussion up about how we have to get used to computers crashing. It seems like one of those things that, oh yeah, sometimes they don't work, right? But now the ubiquitous of things like I think transferring currency. I used to work. I don't know if you know this, but I used to work in the FX department in
Mm.
Bank of America, which I only found impressive because of how they actually trade
Mm.
currencies. Ugh, oh my
Mm.
God, it's not fun work. Let's put it that way. Um, but what was interesting is how much they did it. I think it was something like $4 to $5 billion a day
Mm.
goes through this desk. So I was a little part of that.
Yeah, interesting. So in Hollywood, FX means special effects. So maybe that was the same thing, in the And
We can only think of how many terabytes of data is being used right now to render someone's head being chopped off for some movie, right? I don't know if that must be a thing too, right? Server farms and having to render Hollywood blockbusters in 3D. Good God. Okay, so what's our topic for this week, Jack? I think you hinted at this, right? And maybe you want to bring up that dialogue or that image again, because we're kind of talking about a little bit, and not for too long, about educating people about AI. Now, I think your point was about educating people in general and how Gen AI can role. My experience so far with very talented master's degree students isn't good. Now, I helped out a student just recently, and he's going to do surveying. And we talked for some time about how he would find out what people think AI is.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
You're a teacher, I'm a teacher. People tend to know what teachers are. They call me professor, even though I'm not one. I never correct them because, hey, you take what you can get.
Yeah.
But they do have a relationship with teachers that's, a convention, right? That we get to control their grade, which somehow controls their later earnings potential or something. Who knows? But from our perspective, we just want them hopefully to get engaged in the topic and quote unquote learn something, right? But they all come with different points of view. And that's what I've been working on for 10 years, is to try to use computers to help change my point of view as a teacher to the point of view of the students, having them participate more so I understand when they misunderstand. Does that make any sense?
Yeah, definitely. So understanding, right, the learning process and the meta learning, all that stuff kind of is maybe on this diagram here, where in this a Nature paper, they are trying to kind of position AI or generative AI in the learning process, where generally speaking, AI might be there as a solo actor. And what are the capabilities of that solo actor? Right? I would love these capabilities to be maybe appearance, like, hey, I would love to have an avatar that looks like Albert Einstein, for example, that would be teaching me something. And I would love to have an avatar, maybe of Albert Einstein, that can explain to me his papers. Right. But I would feel like it would be appropriate, let's say, if I'm reading, his relativity papers, that, maybe, okay, well, I would like this avatar to kind of explain those papers to me. And if I don't understand them, then it would get to my level and kind of maybe find a way, right, to kind of make it an efficient and successful process. That's kind of
well, can I unpack this a little? Because what you mentioned is a big puzzle to me, right? Which is modality of learning. If someone talking to you can help you, well, then welcome to this podcast, right? Like, I don't know that anyone learns anything by us talking to them. I have been a lecturer for ages, as have you, and I can tell you that I only think maybe 5% of what I say even is understood.
Yeah, and that's how I feel personally. I am disconnected, right? Because I'm the same way. And the way I learn is that I have to write things, right? Write things down.
Yeah, of course.
And the most successful courses that I guess participated in were those that I could go to the library, open, those DVDs or VHS, if anybody remembers, and listen to it like 10 times and make the notes, and then leave only at the time when I'm kind of confident that I can actually rewrite the lecture. Like, okay, I remember what the professor said and I can write it down correctly. And then I consider this to be a learning process that was successful. And if I can't do that, it means that I probably did not allocate enough time, enough repetition. But in terms of the modality, the course materials are usually sufficient for me. I don't even need to see the picture, the person that speaks to me. I just need to see the the I need to hear the explanation to whatever the slides are, and that's kind of what works for me. But I think the attraction would be
Well,
that,
I want to
hey,
add to that.
yeah,
I think
yeah,
everybody is like you. But guess what you've just indicated is that you are willing to make the effort, right?
yeah,
And this is
yeah,
what I think is problematic because making the effort is the hard part, not the
yeah,
learning, right? It's to commit to any sort of effort, which is what I require of my students that really
mm,
irks them.
mm,
Right? Like
mm,
they really don't want to make an effort. And this isn't anything against them, it's just that I kind of force them to do it because what I'm missing from this, if you look at any of the agile methodologies, UX methodologies, and learning methodologies, is some sort of loop, right? I call it
yeah,
a feedback loop. There's no loops here, right? This is sort of you get from here to here, right? There's maybe
mm,
somebody in front of a computer, but really what you just said is there's some sort of iterative process
mm,
that the student has to go through, and whether it's a teacher or an AI, who cares, right? If they don't go through the process, they're unlikely to hit all those memory centers that you hit, the writing center. Remember mind maps, like the
mm.
diagram center. You're great at that. Here, full screen so I can look at you. I've seen this. I don't know how Teams is representing us right now.
Mm.
I can't see you. Oh,
Yeah,
do I have to do
yeah.
it? I have to click on you. Never mind. Sorry. Teams is like, hey,
I'm not
whatever.
sure.
There you
Yeah.
go. There's Jack. Okay. Um. Anyway, I'm just saying. I think everyone is like that.
Mm.
What do you and
Well,
hopefully you're committed enough to make the effort. So that is why you're good.
so if that's the case, right? If let's say we are kind of confident that the AI is gonna do more than a decent job, in this
More than
process,
sure.
right? Then maybe we should start talking about, okay, so what are the carrots or what are the sticks that kind of put the person in front of the AI system or in front of the live teacher or a team, of both, right? So are there maybe AI generated carrots or sticks that we should really think about as a trigger to this process, which may be the primary indicator of success?
Well, let's unpack. We're both teach higher education, and we
Hmm.
both. I saw, which I just shared, and I'll just share it with you, not visually, but maybe I should do this visually. Can I share my
Hmm.
screen?
Yeah.
I felt like I saw what I considered the most impactful educational situation that I've ever witnessed, actually, truly, ever. And maybe I'm just not around this too much, but here it is. Let me share. Share screen. Yes, I will allow you to do that. And I want to share this window. Can you see this?
Yes. Yeah.
So what this was is in a big park, not huge, but a pretty big park in Matsushinos. We were just walking, and it turned out a school group, and you can see here, pretty young kids were all out. Here's the park, and here they were all building forts. Now, weirdly enough, there weren't people telling them how to do this. Maybe someone mentioned, hey, you go find a big twig and you lean it up against lean it up against a tree or whatever. But they were building these things, and they were building
Hmm.
them. And to me, I thought, well, this to me most likely is the most impactful educational experience I've ever witnessed, right? Because when at what age would you be given sort of this doable task or whatever, and then just allowed to do it, and you formed your own groups and you actually built a pretty decent little lean-to shelter, you know what I mean?
Hmm. So are you implying, right, that the learning process has to start very early in life, and it has to be really kind of something that is enjoyable and manual and really. So I'm just kind of thinking, and okay, so let's say we want to, at the end of the process, we would like to produce maybe a theoretical physicist, right? Or a mathematician that does research, right? Or maybe a transplantologist, in the medical field, right? Um, so that's kind of now that's not where AI is needed, right? It's kind of a process that needs to happen outside of the AI circles, so to speak, right?
Well, just like you and I, Jack, it's and you may have heard this from the recent Nobel laureates, which is they all say, which is completely true. It's about all the people working on this. You need to others. The thing is, here's a boy and a girl coming together to do this thing together, right? That's what's impactful is you've built a team and you've done something together. And I can say personally from any work experience, it's the team working together that creates learning, right? Like it
Mm,
is an individual thing. It isn't Albert Einstein. Sorry, Jack. Although I'm sure he
mm,
had good friends, although Niels Bohr and him did not get along too well. But
yeah.
you know what I mean is that it
Mm,
isn't the individual. It isn't even the individual with AI because AI, it's just a tool, right? But if you use AI along the way with a team to create something new, that's what you and I, that's what I believe in. And I know that you may as well, right? We're here to empower groups to form together, especially groups that may lack a lot of skills, which is true of all of us, right? I mean, I only have very limited skills, but if I can use AI to augment our team to especially do the dirty work, right? Who wants to fill in a TPS report? Not me, but if I can get AI to do those things, then my team can have more time to do this. That's what I think the power is. I don't think people
mm,
should think of AI as being an individual plus AI will learn calculus, right? Because there's no
mm,
point in learning calculus. Calculus is just there to solve other problems that are much bigger problems, right? That aren't going to
mm.
be solved by a person, in my opinion. I don't know. You can counteract my passion on
Ye-
one.
Yeah, I'm just kind of trying to kind of think about those things that I read about, let's say stagnation in physics, right? Let's say physics research today. Like, hey,
Mhm.
there is some strong camps. There is maybe string theory camp. There is maybe a few others, but really, many people say that there is stagnation in physics. And I know it's a kind of like maybe not a representative sliver of the whole educational spectrum, right? But let's say I would like to pick something, right, like a specific domain, right? And then how can we produce people who are interested in that domain, right? And to a point that they're gonna stick for a long time. They would be interested in kind of a very rigoristic and maybe unnecessarily gruesome process where you have to really stick to it. It's like learning a foreign language or becoming a doctor or whatever. It's always a long process, right?
No,
And we
I
need and we need
want to
those
say,
specialists, right?
as always, you just tapped into a very relevant situation, which is my friend is a physicist at Fermi Lab who
Mm,
just found in storage and was granted the world's largest magnet for God knows what reason they made this huge magnet. And he's going to try to build an experiment to understand something about neutrinos or some crap like that. I mean, right?
mm,
So but this is what you're saying, like this is a long haul, and what I learned from him and his friends, because I hang out with them sometimes, and
mm,
they're all like experimenters, right? They all build machines and things to study something, and
mm,
that brings to me, this is closer to my passion, which is the arts, right? Which is we're just building ideas that may or may not have any practical you know outcome. They're just fun to build, or
mm,
maybe again, maybe I'm building it like these two kids are. Like I just like building really complicated machines with people, right? Like maybe that's what space is now. Like it's like, hey, here's a problem. Like, how do we get the thing not to we don't have to throw it in the ocean every time we go up, and somebody's like, oh, okay, well, maybe we get it to land, and then we can use it again, and that will make it cheaper.
Yeah, yeah. So
But that's the miracle, right, of engineering. But someone had to come up with kind of like the use case. You see what I mean? Like these use cases of physics get pretty rough.
So maybe what you are saying is maybe it's not about the AI being a teacher, not about AI being the TA or whatever. Maybe it's more kind of about this student well-being project that we've been working on, where it's going to be really this kind of a butler kind of AI that is going to whisper in your ear from time to time that, hey, learning about this or that would be interesting for you, and maybe it's going to be beneficial, and maybe it's going to be cool. Maybe something that's subliminally all those TikToks and Instagrams are doing, like they are attracting us to the content on some level, and maybe we should kind of let the AI find that attraction to something educational.
I think there's that's a best case scenario. I was in an art exhibition recently in Lisbon, and there was art, but one of the art pieces was a video game, quote unquote, right, of something. And what was interesting was the two youngest people, right, were locked into these weird shapes. And I should pull it up on the screen, but anyway, they're sitting there and they are entranced in this video game, which to me was a total waste of time, right? Like this wasn't a good video game. But because they're so fluent in the mechanics of video games, it kept them engaged. And I think that is, if we're going to say that people can pick up a book and read it through, I don't think they can anymore, right? I think that level of engagement in the written word is gone. It's just not needed anymore. And that's a shame, but so what, right? I mean, can I watch an hour-long video about, which I'll share with you, by the way. I have a physics guy that I love watching because he's so excited about differential equations, right? And then he gets me excited about it because I think like, well, why does Einstein have the problem of, light having, the properties of waves? You know what I mean? Like, I love that stuff, right? And I find it very challenging to understand. And I love it when people can explain things and get enthusiastic about explaining it. Am I going to become a particle physicist? No, not so far. I've been interested in this in my whole life, but I just find it interesting for other reasons. And the reason why you and I have such a great partnership, I think, is that I think AI is, again, good at these specificity, but what we're good at is putting together things that don't belong together. And that's what creates interest in other people, right? If people say, can we take video games and teach you how to be a particle physicist? I'd say, great, go play Outer Wilds. It's a great game. It runs on a real physics engine that has time involved, and it's a fascinating. The people who wrote it are some of the most talented creators ever, and it's a video game, but it will teach you about physics. It actually has quantum mechanics in it as a gameplay device that you have to learn quantum physics to finish the game, or how it works, right? Which is fascinating to me because they had to invent the engine to actually operate with all these constraints. So it's a world where, and have you ever heard of this game?
No, not really.
Oh, Out of Wild. Anyway, the entire engine, no matter where you are in this universe, and the universe has 8 planets, all of the events are taking place, whether you're there or not. Like the entire thing, the cosmos has to run in order for the game to work. So it isn't like you load a screen, you're fighting in World War II, I don't know, in Germany or whatever, those games where you've got the level. There's no levels. The entire game is a level, and everything has to operate in real physics for this game to work. And the puzzle is to figure out what's going on. just kind of a puzzle game. But long story short, I still think of video gaming as education as a possibility. I mean that, and AI may make that possible or easier for educators.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. I mean, clearly the Unreal Engine, right, which is made by Epic Games, right? I mean, it has avatars that can speak, that are, lip syncing to the text that can be AI generated. So yeah, you can feed various scenarios, right, to it. But on the other hand, I'm hearing that Apple is discontinuing their high-end VR headset. I think they are stopping production. I just saw somewhere a message about that. So it looks like this immersive kind of aspect of VR and maybe kind of like the metaverse and stuff like that. That's not catching on too much.
Mm.
Um, Maybe because there is no killer application yet, and that killer application probably should be something related to education. And maybe you and I can kind of think about this a little bit more to maybe come up with something. But yeah,
Well,
there needs to be.
and we're recording this to attract others. Please let us know what you think, right? If anyone
Mm,
ever watches this, we want to build this fort with other people, you know?
mm,
So it really is trying to find kind of that world where you can you have a tool now, right? This amazing tool that's still growing, but
mm,
it's still a tool. You still have to have my friend's interest in whatever the gravitino thing that he wants, and then suddenly
mm.
he'll get a large magnet in order to help him along the way, right? You know what I mean? Like it just so happens he got this huge magnet.
Mm.
But it's that it without the goal, without the fascination, and without the tenacity of wanting something, wanting to do something, that none of these tools, they don't. The greatest teacher to me is one who usually, to me, it's still that feel of just a coach, right? I'm just here to help you because you
Mm.
want to do something, right? And I might introduce to you some issues or things and ideas, but what makes my students, some of which, not all, but a couple of which, really mad is I don't let them know that it's up to them. They want me
Yeah,
to teach,
yeah.
right? And those are the worst students. Sorry, you know, you cannot be taught. It's not possible, right? You can only do it yourself and have someone help you.
Yeah. I generally agree. Although I saw in my life, I saw some colleagues of mine that had like a photographic memory, right? So they didn't have to study at all, right? I mean, I know for a fact that it was enough for them to just listen to a lecture once, and then at the exam they were able to basically repeat everything that the teacher said. So I saw people like that, but
No
that's
good
again, that
counterpoint.
was one in a hundred, probably one in 500 maybe.
No, you bring up a good point. It's those perfect pitch fuckers. I mean, what are you going to do, right? Like they
Mm,
can know that that's C minor, but
mm,
normal people, but the point is it doesn't matter,
mm.
right? Like you don't need to know that this is C minor. You just have to tune to the same sound so that the band can play together. God, what am I on metaphoric good terms right now?
Yeah, very good terms. So, although, I mean, again, I mean, sometimes you have to write it down, right? So it's helpful to know that this is C minor versus C major, but it's really kind of something that is tricky, right? Because then you can have a discussion about, okay, so are you really, are you really studying the right thing, right? I mean, a lot of people go to college because they feel like they have to. But in the first place, maybe that's not the right place because maybe in the trades there is a lot more money and a lot more professional success. That's number one, right? And then number two, maybe that's not your field. Maybe if you are studying engineering, you really should be studying literature because you are a naturally born writer, right? And so we can then kind of think about those layers where maybe AI can kind of really give you an honest assessment, like, hey, this thing that you wrote, that essay that you wrote, is 10 times better than the equation that you solved. So maybe you should be a writer than than maybe an engineer, and then. Yeah, I think we talked like about a million things in this meeting today, and I don't know if there is like an overarching message
Oh, no,
about
no. I mean,
AI's role.
you brought up my favorite topic, but I think we should end now. Summarize by just saying we're both enthusiastic about AI, obviously, and we know
Yeah.
it to be a very interesting tool that is changing, and we want to keep talking about it because how it's going to be used as a tool is up on everybody's mind, and that's reasonable, right? And I think it is going to be a really powerful tool in education. However,
Mm.
it's still going to have really, really interesting use cases, and
Mm.
it's also collaboration, which I think is one of the more puzzling parts of computing, right? Is that it allows us to have our own worlds, right? But now maybe the whole point is to still try to figure out maybe how to collaborate better, and maybe
Mm.
AI is there to open us up, like in our work with students, right? To help them share together why these things are important, because that's where actual learning is going to happen, right? It's going to happen through those sharing things. Sorry, I'm trying to summarize, Jack. Did you get anything different? I think we were more on topic than usual, but maybe it's me.
Yeah, I understand. I understand what you're saying because we talked about it so much. I mean, let's just kind of think about the casual viewer of those videos. I mean, are they gonna be satisfied with our coverage? And I think we kind of asked more questions, right? I mean, the human AI collaboration or human AI or human collaboration facilitated by AI. I think this is something that it's not even in too many research papers yet.
Then that's our next topic for next week, because I agree. I think that is actually incredibly exciting, right? And we're just
Mm.
getting there because we don't think of even education as being collaborative, but it is,
Yeah.
right? We've started there. You learn because of the group you're in. That's it, right? And the person in front of the thing doing the grading and all the work is just a worker. And we'd
Mm.
actually like free them up from work, right? So
Yeah.
I mean,
Mhm.
they need to be there instead to understand the perspectives that people bring, right? If you're poor at this or poor at that, or like you said, your equation is bad, but your writing is good, I would say you need to learn more math, because once you put math and your intention to writing together, you're going to be much more powerful and happier, right?
Mm.
Because the more you don't like math, the more I'm going to be pissed off, because I think math is awesome. Anyway,
Yeah.
even though I don't understand it.
Mm.
All right.
Yeah.
Till next time, Jack.
Yeah. Thank you, Mike.
Great to
See
be
you soon.
back. Great to be in the same time zone.
Yeah.